Recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this important hearing, and thank you, Secretary Austin and General Milley, for your service and for your time before us today. I have the honor and privilege of serving, representing El Paso, Texas, home to Fort Bliss, America's second largest military installation and the largest joint mobilization force generation installation in the Army, home to the 1st Armored Division and Joint Modernization Command. I'm so pleased to see $15 million in the budget for a new fire station at Fort Bliss, and we'll work to ensure that that funding is included in this year's NDAA. Fort Bliss, its people and infrastructure are critical to our military's readiness. From my first day as the Congresswoman for this great military installation, I've advocated for the investments needed for our assets and missions. I'm going to do it again here today. There are 2 infrastructure priorities that we need to fund critical to our readiness. The first is a modest investment in a railhead. The current rail infrastructure and design is a limiting factor in efficient movement of military equipment in support of deployments. Punting on providing funding for the railhead further degrades Fort Bliss's ability to mobilize and demobilize troops that come from every corner of the country because of the installation's mission as a joint mobilization force generation installation. Fort Hood has a similar number of assets and missions, but a larger railhead. Bliss is doing the best they can, but a larger railhead will allow them to better meet the DoD's shift to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow, namely China. The second is the need for new barracks. I've been in the barracks at Fort Bliss and can tell you they are in poor shape and inadequately cooled. In a desert environment like El Paso, where we've had more record-breaking triple-digit temperatures each year as a result of the climate crisis, the barracks can become so hot I can easily see someone passing out as a result. I know there's some 3D printing innovation going on, but I want to emphasize that degraded living spaces and substandard facilities at our installations lowers morale, increases health and safety risks, and negatively impacts retention, which in turn affects our readiness. I provide these 2 examples in order to make sure that Fort Bliss remains top of mind to you, and also to point out that our readiness is directly tied to the infrastructure we have here at home at key installations like Fort Bliss. Secretary Austin and General Milley, could you talk about where you see Fort Bliss fitting into the department's plans for addressing the pacing challenge with China and modernizing our military?
Well, as you've said, Fort Bliss houses some of our most capable forces there with our armor forces and also some air defense capability. So it is an important installation to us. And I share your concerns with making sure that we have the right facilities for our troops and make sure that our troops are taken care of. That's very, very important to me. We'll make sure that we go back and work with the Army to see where things stand in priority and get a better understanding of when and how these things are funded.
And I would just echo what the Secretary said. Fort Bliss is a strategic platform for the deployment of some really significant combat power in the Armored Division that's there. And as mentioned through many previous member comments about the importance of air defense systems, Patriot, and so on, that's all done at Fort Bliss. And then, of course, you know as well as I do that Fort Bliss is adjacent to White Sands Missile Range. A lot of testing for modernization is done there. So we want to make sure that the railheads are good so they can deploy the force. We want to make sure the barracks is squared away to ensure that the force itself is being taken care of so we can achieve those strategic objectives. I'll get with the Chief of Staff of the Army. I wasn't, as you know, I'm former Chief of Staff of the Army. I wasn't tracking the barracks at Bliss have deteriorated that bad, but let me get back to you on an answer for that.
Appreciate it. And in my remaining 30 seconds, I just want to emphasize, as we've heard some of my colleagues talk about legacy systems, it's really on Congress. It's important to us that we heed the advice that you've given us in classified and unclassified settings about the need to invest in the right way. My time is up. I yield back. Thank you both. And by the way, invite you both. Would be honored to host you at Fort Bliss. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. Mr. Carl is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, gentlemen, for willingness to come in here and speak to us. I've got 3 quick points and 1 question. So, when you get to me, you're